You are listening to the Bold Dreams Held Loosely podcast, the go-to podcast for soul-led coaches, leaders, and healers. My name is Taryn Watts, and I am a master certified coach and the founder of the Mind Rebel Academy, an ICF-accredited coaching school where we train and support people to fully express their purpose through world-class coaching skills. Join me and fellow faculty member Michelle Theriault as we dive into the world of coaching and model what it looks like to live deeply examined lives. Inside these episodes, we have raw, honest, very human conversations that are expanding our minds, opening us up to new possibilities, and keeping us steadfastly committed and focused to walking our path towards our deepest yearnings and greatest visions. And our intention is that they do the same for you. Enjoy.
Okay. So we want to talk about this podcast conversation was inspired by a book I'm reading that was it's interesting, in our last conversation, The Hero's Journey, we talked about how that stage of a hero's journey when like a mentor appears, and sometimes that mentor can be in the form of like an actual person, physical person in your life, but sometimes it can be the right book you need to read or the right lyrics to a song or something to help you like fully cross a threshold and like fully it's something that speaks directly to whatever it is that you're inside of or whatever it is that you're yearning for. So a mutual friend and an Emory alumna, Diana Eskander, she last month I was away on vacation and she messaged me to say, oh my gosh, you need to read this book. You're going to love it. I know you're going to love it. And it was right at a time where I had just finished reading my last book. And I was like, oh, I want a book that I can just, sometimes I start books and I'm like, oh, this is not it. This is not it. This is not the book that's calling to my soul right now. And I started reading this book and I just had the biggest smile on my face. At one point, my dad looked over at me and he's like, what are you reading? I was like, I'm just like soaking in every word and every perspective of this book. So the book is called 10x is Easier Than 2x. And it's by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And so I guess the idea was Benjamin Hardy was the author of this book, but he was really writing about a lot of the teachings that Dan Sullivan taught him. And so Dan Sullivan is the founder of the Strategic Coach, Inc. And so these concepts that we're going to talk about today were created by Dan Sullivan, but written about really like profoundly by Benjamin Hardy in his book, 10x is Easier Than 2x, because of how profound these perspectives impacted his life. So they have this like really beautiful partnership. So the idea is that up-leveling your life 10x is an easier thing to do than up-leveling your life by 2. And so even the title, even the concept of that just like drew me in. And this book introduces just many, many concepts that help you to 10x your life. And to even define what would 10x look like in your life. As I started to chew on this, of course, I shared some of these ideas with you, and we were in some conversations around 10xing pieces of our lives. And so we've just been kind of going down this thought pattern, and we thought, let's further explore this and further delve into this concept on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to pick up, where we left off on our behind the scenes conversation?
So I'm going to read this quote. This quote is by Richard Koch. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but here's a quote that they put in the book. The road to hell is paved with the pursuit of volume. Volume leads to marginal products, marginal customers, and greatly increased marginal complexity. Hard work leads to low returns. Insight and doing what we want leads to high returns. Strive for excellence in few things rather than good performance in many. It is not shortage of time that should worry us, but the tendency for the majority of time to be spent in low quality ways. The 80-20 principle says that if we doubled our time on the top 20% of activities, we would work a 2-day week and achieve 60% more than now. So they talk a lot about this 80-20 rule. And Michelle, I know you've dug into the work of Tim Ferriss for a while, and he talks a lot about this 80-20 rule too. Do you want to speak a little bit more to describing that?
Yeah, he talks about it in a couple different contexts. So one of the contexts he talks about is, in terms of a lot of maybe more of the details, the practical things, the logistics. One example is he talked about his customer base, and he talked about how 80% of his customers were taking about 20% of his energy. And there was 20% of his customers who were taking 80% of his energy when he had a business. And he decided, instead of trying to please all of my customers, I'm going to stop trying to please this small group who are taking so much out of me, and I'm going to release them. He would actually fire his customers. We're not a good fit. Goodbye. And he released that. And he did that with a lot of his other tasks around him too. Where is my energy going? And when I really look at it, some people say, like, don't ever turn away a customer, or like, need to do all these things. But he looked at it and he started releasing things that other people thought you couldn't release. But I think the more interesting way to look at it, that he talks about a little bit too, and that we're really talking about here, is the aspect of using this 80-20 rule to quantum leap your life, your job. Once you identify what's really important for that next version of you, the way your soul wants to express. Right now, that might be like, 20% of what you're doing because you have so much else to manage. And how do you flip that? So that 20% that's really aligned to the next version of you, how do you just double, triple, quadruple, 10x down to that and release everything else for somebody else to do? So 80% of what you're doing now either gets released, delegated, you focus all your energy on this really special piece that only you can do. Mm-hmm. Or that this really special piece that is key to the quantum leap that you want to make.
Right.
Did I don't know if I even described that clearly enough.
You did. And that's essentially the premise of this book, which is that if you want to make this quantum leap, the only way to get there is to release that 80%, whether that 80% is clients that drain your energy, activities, tasks that drain your energy. Release it, delegate it, outsource it, get it off your plate so that you can focus the majority of your energy on the 20% of the activities that actually help you get to this next level. And so it requires you to take a really honest inventory of how you spend your hours. And we're talking about this in the context of vocation, but this is probably true in every key area of your life. But in the context of vocation, looking at where you spend your time and what's part of the 20% and what's part of the 80%. And then how do I release this, delegate this, or get this off my plate? So that's one of the main premises of this book. And then the other one that I find really fascinating and really interesting is exploring more about this 20%, really unpacking what that 20% is for you. And they have this term called your unique ability. So identifying what your unique ability is. And that's really part of your 20% that needs to be expanded, that needs to be like all hands on deck, all focused energy needs to be on expressing your unique ability. And that's the path to a 10x jump. So what you and I have been exploring is, what's our unique ability? Like, what is that? And so we have our own language for unique ability that maybe we could use, which is, we talk a lot about the authentic self. And when I think about the unique ability, I think about core essence, the magic sauce, the core essence of who you are. So they talk about your unique ability being a central and core aspect to who you are. They also talk about it's the way in which you provide the most value for other people, which no one else on the face of this earth could ever replicate, even if they wanted to. It is so unique to your internal being. It's the core of who you are. And they also talk about your unique ability being, it's more than what you do. What you do creates an expression or an outlet for the essence of who you are, like this unique ability. So, for example, coaching could be a way for you to experience your unique ability. Teaching could be a way. It could be mentoring could be a way. The possibilities are endless. But the idea is to identify what that is for you and don't be too attached to the way it's expressed, because that can change. In fact, that must change when you're 10xing yourself. Did I lay enough of a foundation to start dissecting this a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of crazy when you sit back and you think about the idea of having a really fulfilling vocation. And if part of having a really fulfilling vocation is having a really clear sense of, here is what I do so well. Here is the thing that I can give or channel or be or express that like no one could quite ever do this like me. No one has quite that same core essence or, energetic signature. And so how fundamentally important that is in like the highest of expression of what your life could look like in the area of vocation or wherever else. And then thinking about how I don't think most people know what, yeah, this is, and like, especially confidently, this is my gift. I don't think most people know. We just kind of figured it out for sure.
We didn't know.
No.
When I was reading this, I was like, okay, I like that. I like the concepts, but what is mine? I
Yeah.
have no idea. Is it coaching? Is it teaching? Like that's where my mind went first, on something like a particular skill that I have, but it's not those things. It's not those things. And it took you and I going back and forth. It took like me asking you the question and you contemplating it, and then you came up with yours. And as you were sharing yours, I was like, that's yours. You want to talk about yours?
Yes, but before I talk about mine, I just want to say that even though, okay, that everyone can hear these conversations that we have here, and it's like pretty obvious I'm not afraid to express anything to you ever, right? Like the things that I say to you are like, I'll tell you everything. Then go behind closed doors, and the things that I say to you, like I have no fear of expressing. And when you first asked me that question, what do you think is, however you phrased it, your most unique gift? Like, what is this thing for you that is so special that no one else can quite recreate this thing? Before I started answering, I had a little bit of like, okay, I think this is, and I think that's significant. It's funny that it's still so challenging to go, here's why I'm incredible. Like it's
You
kind of
did what
hard
did
to
it feel,
do.
Michelle, did it feel, like, vulnerable to say, or what was that hesitation?
Yeah, vulnerable to say, not enough to stop me. I started speaking and it came out, but what if I'm wrong? You know how sometimes you think something and then you keep kind of sorting it out and then you pull back layers and you get more clarity later and your initial thoughts transform into something else later. When I start thinking about something or trying to find my own answers, I don't immediately come to the best answer. And it felt a little like, ooh, at the thought that maybe I was going to say something that, like, this is how I'm incredible. And then later I'd be like, oh, it's not really true. For some reason, that's more vulnerable than feeling through something else, which is silly, but it feels, yeah, it felt a little more challenging to just um, throw out ideas and circle around what makes me so magical or special, or, what my secret sauce is that I'm meant to give to the world. It felt that'll be a little cringy if Taryn is, well, I don't think that's true. And like later I'm like, well, yeah, it's not really that actually.
I have a
Oh,
different secret sauce, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For mine, it felt almost it's so, mine is so baked into who I am that I almost miss it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh, yeah.
almost it's almost so obvious that it can't be that obvious. It can't be that,
Mm-hmm.
but I almost can't see it,
Yeah.
or how special it is, or how unique it is, because it's so baked into who I am.
I think that is an important piece that I think anyone else who wants to contemplate what this is for them, I think what you're saying is important, because I think that is sort of true for me too. Um, in like an ever so slightly different way, but those qualities, like we'll talk about specifics in a minute, but when I think about the qualities that I expressed to you, like I think this might be what it is for me. For the vast majority of my life, those qualities that I expressed to you in the context of, this is what makes me special, this is the thing I have to give that others don't have to give, for the vast majority of my life, I didn't think those were valuable things. I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of these ways, but like being this way isn't of value. In fact, it's like maybe a little bit of a liability to be this way. So yeah, it was something so baked into me that I absolutely did not recognize as being of value. And maybe there's different reasons why you don't realize these parts of you are of value. Um, but that was true for me as well. So it's interesting, like as you're reflecting on what that is, maybe don't look for the thing that your mind thinks is glamorous. Like, oh, this is my really glamorous gift. Like maybe don't look for the thing you I don't know, would like fantasize about being, I don't know, if like maybe don't look for the thing that seems like the world would value. Like
Mm.
go to the more subtle, like you said, go to the thing that's like what's really baked into you. What's a piece of your core essence that's always been there and maybe you've overlooked or undervalued.
Yeah, or
Could
maybe the world has overlooked and undervalued.
Yeah.
Okay, Michelle, what have you
Ah,
discovered
fine.
is
Okay.
the essence of your authentic self and your unique ability?
Yeah, I'm feeling that feeling again, by the way, of like, oh, this is okay. But it's funny. I'm sure, I don't think it's a surprising thing. And I'm sure I've said something along these lines before about, oh, this is how I work or this is what I do. A piece of it for me is I am so sensitive. And I am so emotionally sensitive. Life happens around me, or, things happen inside of me or whatever. And I feel it so acutely in an emotional sense. And that's often felt like a real liability, a real flaw. The number of people who have told me I'm too sensitive, and just to like get over it, or, um, I can't even count the times where someone said, you should probably toughen up. You're too sensitive. And um, so that's a piece of how I am. And there's another piece of how I am is that what I need to do is, instead of trying to shut those emotions down, or, I don't know, rise above them, I need to feel them and like be with them until I get to a place of real clarity and peace, like real clarity and peace, where like, oh, I know what's true for me here. And there's another piece, this third piece of me that I don't even know if it's that I like to express or want to express, that there's a piece of me that feels like I have to. It's like I'll be suppressing something inside of me if I don't express. I felt it so many times in relationships, conflicts. It's like, don't say it, don't say it. You're going to cause a big fight. You're going to, things are going to explode around you. And I'm like, I know this is a bad idea, but I can't help it. And I need to express. And I think for me, it's the way those three things connect together. And I don't think my core essence and the gift I have to the world is when I angrily express in the way that I used to. I don't mean that. But when I touch a situation and with that, and go in and allow myself to be as sensitive as I want to be, and feel my way through until I feel clarity, and then express that clarity, I think that's the thing I do that is really special. Yeah.
So when you shared this to me, it was so obvious to me, someone who knows you very well and who's been on the receiving end of your internal process. Working with you, when we work together and we create things together and we co-create together and when we problem solve, and you have this incredible ability like no one else I've ever seen before, truly. You have this incredible ability at taking in all the data of a situation or scenario or a perspective or idea, and you do something internally with it. It's like you're processing, you're sifting through, you're feeling your way through, you're discarding things that don't align, and and then once you've done that filtering or sifting process internally, what it comes out of you, the expression that comes out of you, the ideas, the thoughts, the questions, the perspectives ring so true to me. So it's like when you share something, there's something inside of my being that says, "Ooh, that was just profound. That was just truth." Even in the smallest of situations, you have this incredible ability to the sensitivity of your body and the sensitivity of your system to discard what's not true for you. And then when you express it, it's profound. Like, it's really profound. That is so unique to you. Whether you are writing in your journal, sharing on a podcast, sharing yourself in a coaching lab, it's like the expression, like the outlets can change, but the purest expression is steadfast.
It feels good to soak all that in. I'm so you told me some of this before, but like hearing it again, just soak this in when she's saying it. Like I so
I
appreciate this.
let me keep going because I really mean it. I really, really mean it with all my heart and soul. There have been so many times that you have shared perspectives that have been like what could be really what's the word? Controversial. Like really controversial perspectives that like mainstream says this and mainstream culture, everyone's doing this. And then I go over to like my little corner of the world with you and you share your truth with me. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I'm over here in mainstream thinking mainstream thoughts because that's just what's happening in the times right now. And then you share your perspective and all the things that you've chewed on and sifted through and share it from this place inside of you that accesses some kind of deep well of universal truth. And then you speak it with such clarity and such grace and such alignment and such from such a sturdy place inside of you that it blows my mind open to see the world differently. I can't tell you how many times you have done that for me in big controversial, opinions that you might have had, and even the smallest. When we had challenges in the MRA and I'm struggling with, oh, this has happened and what do you think? And then you share your perspective and the way you see this situation. And it's like if all my fears, all my limiting beliefs wash away and I am reminded of the deep universal truth within. That's what you do. That is what you do that no one else does like you. For me, anyway, for the people you touch.
Yeah. You know what else you reminded me of that I had forgotten, which is so crazy, is you remembered a line in my authentic self statement that I wrote about this. And it's so funny because although I didn't know and I couldn't say immediately what this was for me, I had touched this before as something that felt good or a yearning, like pieces of this. And you reminded me there's a line in my authentic self statement that says, I move smoothly through the waves towards the clear and rising ring of truth. This, like, not really even just the concept of truth. I don't mean truth in like, I don't mean truth in a conceptual way or a right or wrong way. I mean the feeling of truth. That has always been so important to me. Like, I can't really rest or feel settled about anything unless I have that feeling of truth, which feels so clear and so peaceful and so unattached. Oh, this is true, And yeah, and it's funny now that I ripped the Band-Aid off and I got over the piece of being like, oh, it's like awkward to say what I'm so good at. Now that we've just kind of ripped that Band-Aid off and you reflected all these things, as I'm soaking in your words and like listening to you reflect this about me, what I actually feel is like a really kind of like gently warm, good feeling. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is my superpower and this is better than other people's. It actually just feels really like, oh, yeah, this is like a good thing about me. And it's like this like very gentle sort of maybe sense of, I don't know, just like this very gentle sense of like pride or like just this gentle sense of like just even like basic self-worth. Like, here's what's good about me, And it even also this gentle sense of like confidence, and none of those things feel big or loud or splashy. And I noticed, like, in the past when I always imagined feeling really good at something or really special or having something to offer, my brain always imagined it as something really, I'll be like that. People will recognize me for this. People will think I'm good at this. People will think I'm, um, and I always thought like, oh, it would feel so good to, I don't know, it would make me feel confident if people saw me this way. All these things my brain imagined. But anchoring into this, what's actually true, it feels so quiet and so good. This feels really good in like a quiet, sort of gentle way. And that somehow feels more real and just more grounded than anything else my brain ever imagined.
Yeah, I think that when your soul is reflected and seen, I think that's what it feels like.
Mm,
It feels true, feels soft, feels open. There's no ego involved.
yeah.
It's your soul, like the essence of your soul is being reflected back to you.
Hmm. How lucky am I?
Yeah, and then I think of, oh gosh, as the leader of the MRA, and and having you on this team, I think, how can we create? So this is your unique ability. How can we create more and more containers and ways, outlets for you to express yourself like
Mhm.
that?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
not only will that bring you more joy, but that will bring the organization more success.
Hmm.
If more leaders could think of it like that, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I think what you're just saying also illustrates the point you were trying to make earlier about it's not like, what's my core essence? It's, I mean, it might be a teacher. If someone was like, no, I am meant to be a teacher, that like that, it can be that, but it's not just one job or one role or one type of task. It's when we were reflecting and I was reflecting, I was looking back to all of the ways and places that this energy expresses. And it can and has done that in so many places and everywhere that I've been able to embrace, not even just this part of me, but everywhere I've been able to operate like this has been a satisfying place. And that can keep evolving, so it's like I've been expressing like this here, but now growth requires me, not because this is bad or wasn't aligned, but now growth and the quantum leap I'm yearning for requires me to express this in some sort of 10x way. Like what's that, what's that
Yeah.
supposed to be? Yeah.
Yeah. And so the first part of this exploration is determining what that unique, energetic signature is of yours. What is it? How is it currently being expressed? And then if you are looking to 10x a piece of your life, what's the next iteration of that expression? Because it's probably going to look a little different and perhaps even a lot different than what it looks like today.
Do you want to tell everyone what yours is?
Yeah, this makes you feel a little like, oh,
Tell us why you're amazing.
oh Lord. Okay. You actually had to, I was so blocked at this. I was so blinded to this. Like I couldn't see it. I really, really couldn't see it. And you had reflected it back to me. And the moment you reflected it back to me, I could see it. I could see it so clearly. The other day, and I already told you this story, Michelle, but this is what helped me to realize what mine is. So the other day, my daughter had a really she had her birthday weekend. She had she had 6 friends sleep over, and there was just a lot of energy, and she was just crashing the next day, just like plummeting the next day. And so I instinctively knew what she needed to come back home to herself. So I drew her a nice warm bath. She bathed in her in the warm water. And then I cleared my entire afternoon because I knew she needed me. I knew she comes back home to herself through me right now in this stage of her life. I am like this anchor for her to come back home to herself. And so we cuddled in bed, and we just held each other, and we watched a movie, and we just got as close as human. Like, she actually even likes to get skin to skin with me, just like as close as humanly possible, just to hold each other. And I could just feel her entire nervous system calming, and I could literally feel her coming back home to herself. And as that's happening, my husband comes into the bedroom, and he's like, "Oh, you guys look so cozy. I'm coming in." And so he cuddles up and wraps his arms around Shay and I. And then our dog comes in the room, and the whole, like, she's got like area on the bed, but she comes and jumps right on me and paws her way up, and then puts her head right on my chest here. So I've got Nala right here just staring at me, just like wanting to nap on me. I've got Shay tucked in here and just Sean's arms over us. And Sean said to me, he said, "Look how loved you are. Look how much we all love you so much." And in that moment, I was like, I know how loved I am. I know how important I am to my people, whether it's Shay, my dog, Sean, or Cooper. Like, I know how important I am in helping my people come back home to themselves. I am the anchor that helps them to come back home to themselves. And what you reflected to me was, yeah, I feel like I come back home to myself when I'm in your energy too. And when I think about what the MRA is and the resounding feedback we get from students and alumni, is that when they're in this space, they feel like they've come close. And it's a feeling like that's the best way to describe it. And I've heard that since day one, since inception of the MRA. In fact, I've heard that when I was when doing one-on-one coaching, like that was the feeling people got when they were in my presence or in a space that I've created. And again, it felt so, because it's who I am in every facet of my life, and it just felt not spectacular or special because it's so normal. You know what I mean? But that is the energetic signature of my authentic self.
Yeah. That's why people can't get enough of you.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
No. It's true. Your energy is it feels so good and is so generous in this way that when you sort of open yourself up, or the times you've been available, it's almost like a snowball effect of like people coming into your energy. If I think about, your one-on-one coaching, right? Like you're open and then it grows and people come and they come back and they come back and they tell their friends, and it's like, ooh. If I think about the MRA, same thing. If you were offering, you have, you don't have enough hours in the day, but imagine if you were just available to have people spend time in your energy whenever they wanted, like you would never have another second of your life free ever again, because it's so special. It's so precious. Where else can you find that? The number of students who've said to you, and have also said to me, and have also said to like Kelly when they're in the admissions process, that as soon as I landed on the website, I felt like this is home. And same with just being in the program. And that piece is entirely an extension of your energy. And I think it's so incredibly rare. I actually believe, I don't know if there's another human on the planet who has this exact thing to this exact extent. Because if I think about my entire life, I felt all sorts of things I was drawn to and that I liked, made me feel good. But um, I never felt a sense of true home inside myself and even belonging inside myself the way I did when being in a space held by you, whether it's with like you one-on-one or you holding like, you know, my cohort, my like the first MRA cohort, the way you held all of us, that was home to me in a way more than any actual home I've ever had. That was home to me more than my real family in some ways. Not like my sisters are listening, like, I love you guys are home to me, but truly feeling here is where I belong. Like I found myself inside of myself and this is where I belong. And it's like, I've yearned for this. And I used to yearn for the feeling of home and thinking like it was a place out there. And, you know, coming into that experience, into like the first MRA cohort and finding home in myself, you know, if that was out there somewhere else, I probably would have found it. I went how many 30, however many years until that was the first moment that I was truly able to sense the feeling of home. And me right now knowing and being able to express, you know how when you asked me, I was like, I think I know what my gifts are. There is, I wouldn't know that if it wasn't for you. You
Oh,
know, I wouldn't. I would not know that if it wasn't for you. And I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't know the true vision for their life or like that like essence of their soul or like the, you know, the core essence of their authentic selves. There's so many people who wouldn't know that without you. And so there's like all these people walking around the world now being like you were the portal to them coming home to themselves. And I am so lucky every once in a while, the fact that I, you know, have you on Voxer and can call you, like I have your real phone number, the fact that I get to connect with you, that's an area of wild abundance that I am so grateful for. Being connected to you helps me stay connected to myself. That is the wildest abundance to have that energy in my life.
wow. You know what else is probably true when someone reflects back the core essence of who you are is wild gratitude and like humble gratitude, you know, of
Yeah.
oh, like my whole heart is on fire, you know, like oh, you've just seen me. Yeah. So okay, I have a little story to tell
Mhm.
about a mutual friend of ours. She's also she works for the MRA. Her name is Dawn. Dawn is our student services for the MRA, and Dawn also owns a company, co-owns a company called 11 Love, and they design beautiful beaded bracelets and candles and all sorts of beautiful necklaces, all sorts of just gorgeous products. So the other day, so last month we were away, my family and I were away in Costa Rica, and Shay and I, so our families, Dawn and I are best friends, and our kids call each other, we call each other aunties, and they think they're cousins, and you know, they've grown up very close. So Shay and I were walking on the beach, and Shay, out of nowhere, out of the blue, just says, Auntie is just so magical and incredible. And Shay just adores Dawn, just adores her. And I was like, oh, tell me more about what you find so magical about Auntie. Well, first of all, Auntie makes things and sells them. Like she thinks that's the coolest thing in the whole wide world. But she said, but Auntie believes things, Mom. Like believes things like a child would believe things. Like Auntie believes in real magic, and she believes in real miracles, and she believes in things that adults can't see or believe in. And I thought that was just such a beautiful reflection of Dawn, because it's so true. It's so, so true. And so I shared that with Dawn, and it made her whole day. And just last week, the same time you and I were having this conversation, Dawn and I had a co-working day where the kids were playing and her and I were working side by side. And I started talking to her about this book and this contemplation. And I asked her, what do you think your unique ability is? What's the core essence of who you are? And she said, well, it's what Shay said about me. It's what Shay sees in me. And I said, I thought, oh my God, you're right. That is 100% what makes Dawn Dawn. It's what makes her so magical. It's what makes being in her presence feel like such a magical experience. And so, sometimes this core essence of who we are, sometimes we can't see it because, again, we're so close to it. But like a child could recognize it. It's so simple and so obvious. And so sometimes it's just so obvious we can't see it.
Yeah.
What was really interesting about this conversation with Dawn, because she is currently yearning to 10x her business. So we started to really dive into this conversation. Okay, Dawn, so if you know your unique ability, your core essence is this magic, I asked her, how do you currently, what are the activities that you do in 11 Love currently that express this magic? Like going back to that 80-20 principle, what's the 20% of your current tasks that you do that give you the opportunity to express this magic? And then what's everything else so that you can, again, either release it or outsource it so that you can spend more time doing this? So we started to think this through, and she started saying, well, when I'm making things, like when I'm making a bracelet, like Dawn and her business partner, Alda, they don't just make bracelets. They make bracelets. They put love and attention and focus into every bead they string. They Reiki every bracelet. They put intentions into every bracelet. When Dawn makes her candles, it's like she puts healing energy into every candle. There's so it's her way of adding magic into a product so that it reaches the right, when it reaches her customer, they can experience this magic. And so she was talking about, and obvious for me, someone looking inside Dawn's life and what she does, like the pieces of magic that she touches. And so that's where she gets to be the most creative. And so we were talking about that. And then she said to me, but I don't want to be a candle maker forever. And so that was like, that, I think those two things were, that was such an important realization, that in this current expression of her, in this current reality of her business, here are the areas she's expressing this magic. She's infusing magic into products, and she's reached a plateau in terms of the expression of that, because she can't get to 10x growth in her business if she's the one making all the candles and the bracelets. Like, she can't get to 10x, right? If there's a plateau there. And so this realization that this is what I love, but I can't get to my next level of greatness continuing it this way. I can't just be the candle maker. And now the discovery or the contemplation is, well, in a 10x vision for your life, how are you expressing your magic? And so where we got to in our contemplation was where she's actually finding she loves expressing her magic the most is when she's writing the wishes for each of the products that she creates. And so imagine what would happen if she started to outsource some of these other pieces and focused her energy on writing the most incredible, dawn-infused, dawn-inspired wishes that go with each of her products, that are infused to each of her products. And the other thing she's currently working on that's touching this 10x energy is writing an oracle deck where, you know, she's got all of her wishes on every oracle card. And but you see, imagine so now she's focusing her energy, or more and more of minutes of her day, on that 10x expression of her unique essence. And that is the path to 10xing your business.
Yeah. You know what? I know I'm kind of going a little bit back here, but it's just like it's just filling my mind as you know, with Dawn, for example. I remember so clearly and viscerally the feeling when I first met her. I don't know how many years ago that would have been, Taryn, like almost 20? Like, I don't know, however long ago, right? Because she's been your best friend for so long. I remember first meeting her and feeling her energy. And one of the first feelings I ever felt from her was almost the sense of intimidation is not quite the right word, but this sense of like almost, I wish I could find a better word than intimidation, because it's not that, because I felt like, you know, my sensitivity that I was describing, I felt like she's so powerful. And there's something unseen here that is so powerful. And I always have had the feeling that she could see into my soul and I wouldn't be able to hide anything from her. And it was like, if I am not true right now, or if I'm inauthentic in any way, she's gonna sense it. And, you know, I found that like, oh, almost unsettling, the power that I could feel from her. And I've sort of always felt it. And it has shifted from, I don't know you that well, and this is like, your power is almost overwhelming, to there's nothing to be scared of or intimidated by, but that sense of power is still there. You know, that sense of like, there's something happening behind the scenes in the energy that she can tap into, and no one or nothing can hide from her. And she has like power to like see into things, and she has power to send her energy into things. And it's funny that, you know, maybe it's also reassuring that even though your core essence, you know, the true energy and expression of your authentic self, even if it isn't clear to you consciously, it exists enough for people to feel along the way like it exists in you. Like, this piece of her has always been there, always. And it almost might be useful to think, like, I've told Dawn this before, like, I think you're so powerful, it's almost overwhelming. It's almost interesting. And, you know, Shay sharing like, oh, you're so magical. And I'm sure you've shared things with her. And I'm sure hundreds of other people have shared things with her along these lines. So like, what are those things that people have told you along the way that part of you was like, well, really, maybe? No. You know, like, what are those things the people who know you have been sensing about you, or telling you, or sharing with you, that maybe you haven't ever fully allowed yourself to accept or receive? That might be a good clue to some aspect of the gifts of your authentic self.
Yeah. And if you're really stuck, ask someone, like I asked you, like, ask someone what they see. What do you think my magic sauce is, or unique ability is? What is it? Ask someone to reflect it back to you. Someone close to you who can reflect it back to you.
Yeah, good point. If your mom or dad has a weird lens on life and thinks you should go to school and be a doctor and that would be your strength, like, not a scenario like that, but
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. You know what? I'm really now, so where I'm leaning now in this exploration is okay. So maybe like, how do you know when it's time? You know how Dawn knew it was time because it was like, this is the way I express my magic, and I don't want to be a candle maker forever. That that's like that was a pivotal moment for her to know it's time to up level.
Yeah.
So maybe we could spend a little bit of time talking about how do you know when it's time to up level something?
Yeah.
And then how do you do that?
Yeah. This thought was coming to me this morning about um it's almost like a chicken or the egg kind of thing, or just there's a relationship between two things. And it seems like sometimes what occurs to people first is, okay, let's just say in business, for example, or in vocation, it seems like what some people hit first is this sense of like, maybe it's, I want more money or abundance, and like this just doesn't, or more time, more ease. Like I can't, and it seems like if I keep going the way I'm going, I can't get more of it. Because either, if money is made through giving hours, but I feel like I'm giving the most amount of hours I can, like I don't know how to get more money. Like there's this sense of like, ooh, I'm reaching this like this plateau where the only ways I know to give myself either more time or more money, it doesn't seem to work. I don't know how to do it. The way I'm doing things now, no matter what I tweak, it doesn't seem to give me what I want. And then, that could start the contemplation of, okay, what's the next way my soul wants to express? What's the quantum leap? I wonder if sometimes it's actually happening in reverse. I wonder if what's really happening is the authentic self, or the soul is like, I'm ready to grow and quantum leap. So it sends these feelings down to, our like, just our, I don't know, our bodies.
Our human self.
It's time to evolve and express in new ways. And then these are just the things we're, noticing. And so maybe some of the signs are like, maybe it's anywhere along that spectrum. Maybe it's more like, it feels like I need more money, or I need more time, or and other times, maybe there's even nothing seemingly wrong, or there's no lack, and perhaps it's just like, it's just time for something new. My soul wants adventure or growth or something fresh. And regardless of what it is, like, yeah, I think it could be, I think so many things could be signs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the authentic self wants to grow and evolve constantly, wants to continue to grow and evolve and express in all sorts of different ways and experience in all sorts of different ways. And either we're open and listening to that evolution and moving forward with it, or maybe we're not. And then there's like this dissonance that happens inside where we're staying put, but our souls want us to grow and evolve, but we're going to stay put for whatever reason. And then that can create some dissonance, or we don't understand how. We're like, okay, I know I want more money, I want more freedom, but like, I can't see the path how. And that can create a lot of dissonance inside. That can create a lot of inner conflict and challenge inside. I think also, something that's been helpful for me is in the 10x jump, the next level leap that I'm looking for. I wrote down what it is that I know I'm yearning for, what it is that I want. So I wrote, and I wrote this down right on my little whiteboard here. But it's 10x the 10x the money, 10x the ease, 10x the freedom, and 10x the impact. If I were to have just said 10x the money, and focused on just that, that would have taken me down a rabbit hole of how do I get 10x revenue or 10x profit or whatever the money equals to you, or 10x a paycheck or whatever it equals to you. That would take me down one, like the only way I know how to make more is to work more. So that would have taken me down one path. When I add, how do I get 10x the money and 10x the freedom, I now have to think about a whole new path. Because what was working for me over here, I know how to 10x income because I work more, right? But how do I 10x income and 10x freedom? Well, now I have to think of a new way to get from point A to point B. It forces my brain to think of a new paradigm, like a new reality. And then you add in 10x the ease. Like, and freedom and ease mean two different things to me. Freedom means more space in my calendar. Ease means, how can I just make this easier to, all the things I do in my work are so easy, like so much ease, not mindless ease, but so much ease that my mind can be free to be creative. Because when I'm chewing on, oh, this is hard, this feels hard, I'm not open to creativity and higher levels of expression. And then impact, 10x impact, that also throws in another piece of the equation. I want to create more impact, but I want to do it in a way that honors these other needs: income, freedom, ease, and impact. Now, all of a sudden, I am looking at something that I've never done before. This is the 10x. I don't quite know how to get there, but I know that focusing more and more of my energy on the thing that I am exceptional at in a 10x energy. And I've almost created a filter for myself now of like, does this contribute to 10x profit? Does it contribute to 10x freedom? Does it contribute to 10x ease? And does it contribute to 10x impact? If these answers no, then put it away. Don't focus on that thing, you know?
Yeah. I was thinking about, for me, I was like, oh, do I have any other filters? They're very similar to yours, but and perhaps the 10x freedom would like account for this. But I also want like 10x time outside. Like kind of goes hand in hand with freedom, but I want 10x time outside. And like I want to, yeah, maybe this is like, maybe I'm leaning out of the vocation right now and just into life, but I'm like, I want to 10x my time outside. I want to 10x my gardens. I want to 10x my chickens. I really do want to 10x my chickens.
I know you do.
So, do any plans that I have for 10xing my abundance and money and freedom and ease, do they also allow for these things? So what that tells me, this might be silly, but what that tells me is I all of a sudden don't want to start, because if I want to 10x my chickens, I can't all of a sudden start traveling the country doing things, right? Like that can't be a thing. I can't spend infinite more amounts of time, I don't know, inside of the computer. It has to be like things that, things that can create the freedom and let me go outside and let me stay close to home. And yeah. And I love, it's been really, really fun as we're brainstorming. And you're like, okay, here's what we have to do. What would be the 10x energy here? It's really fun to sort out and feel out, okay, what are the different options and which one's actually the 10x energy?
Yeah, and if none of them feel like 10x energy, being open to, okay, then what is? Probably something we've never, ever even contemplated or thought was a possibility before. And then all of a sudden, new little seeds of possibility starts to creep in. And then you just like, move forward with that little seed, just like sleep on it, and then wake up to it and contemplate it and sleep on it. And it grows and it grows and it grows until you realize, oh my God, that like this has actually always been a possibility. I just never believed it was a possibility.
Yeah.
And that's when you start opening up to this 10x energy. It is a paradigm. It is a new paradigm. It is a new reality that you've never experienced before. And so much of this work is, can I get my mind to believe that these things are actually possible?
Yeah. And just like for frame of reference, just so it doesn't sound like we're saying, as soon as you realize this, it can just become clear. Just grab the new idea and do it. Like how long have you been reading this book, and how long have we been just kind of playing with this, would you say?
Well, I started reading this book last month, but the reason I was smiling so big when I was reading it, because it was confirming everything that we've been talking about. And it was just someone putting words to it more eloquently and more someone who's done it, so we've been circling around this for, Michelle, this has been a conversation for months and months and months and months and months. And yeah, so it's creative, and it's like art. It's messy, and it's I remember months and months ago, probably at the point in time where you were at this point of, remember how you were saying earlier in this episode, you were talking about your body can't settle until you found the truth and you found clarity. I remember months ago, you almost having this like this crisis inside of yourself.
Yeah.
And wrestling with what you were feeling, this desire to up level and to like, we didn't have these words then because we didn't have this book as reference, but you were desiring this next level for your life, and you were wrestling with, how could that be possible? Is that possible here? And you couldn't rest until, but what did that look like? It looked like an actual breakdown. Like, it looked like you were having a breakdown.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like, I've got an idea.
Yeah.
It's messy and confusing and uncertain and actually scary. When I was reading this book last month and I was starting to put into place, I was starting to experiment with these principles and starting to focus more of what I did in a day on this 20% and letting other things go, delegating other things. I had this feeling for weeks that something catastrophic was going to happen because I was dropping the ball, because I was no longer focusing on all these little things, like that I was being wildly irresponsible for focusing on these things. And that took a couple weeks of like, okay, I'm going to continue this, but this does not feel good. Like, this does not feel comfortable. This feels actually quite scary that I'm doing something, or I am bad for doing this.
Yeah. Why for you? How did you keep going in that? Like amidst that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm going to drop the ball and everything I have, it's not going to 10x, it's going to crumble. Like, what happened inside of you to make you then keep going forward anyway in this energy?
Because I wanted this to be true so bad. And, you know how they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I think that was what happened with this book. Was, no, keep going. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And so sometimes some in that in those moments, it was like, other people have done this before, and this is normal. It's normal to feel scared. It's normal to feel like you are being irresponsible, or these are normal feelings. So that was very, very helpful, like grabbing onto every word again, which is why I had the biggest smile on my face reading it, because it was just like, oh yes, 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 I'm gonna hold on to this until I don't need to hold on to it so tightly anymore. But the other thing is just continuous connection back to myself, because core of my essence, when I can tap into the knowing and the truth of my soul, I know this is right. I know these are my next steps. I know that despite the fear of my rebel mind and the like alarm bells going off from my guard, because that's who's speaking when I'm in fear, and when I think I'm dropping the ball, or that's who's speaking. They don't want change. They don't want to 10x. 10x is terrifying to them. And so I need to, when I'm in those periods of growth, those growth spurts, tending to those parts of myself regularly are incredibly important.
Yeah. I was just, the way you were talking about, there's the parts of you that don't love the change, right? Or like the idea of this drastic change. It's funny because I think you and I are a little bit different in that way. You're a more consistent person in all sorts of ways than I am. Like, you're very consistent on a lot of levels. I just experience you as very consistent. It's funny, I'm a little more erratic in my it's like multiple. I don't know if erratic's the right way, but there's a part of me that's always actually loved drastic change. Not that it's been like easy for me, not that it's been like seamless, but like the idea of like throwing out an old life and beginning a new one. I've done that a few times, in a way where it's like, "Wah." Sometimes I've even let an old life like crash and burn a little bit. Like, it hasn't been a graceful transition. But sometimes I get to a point where it's like, no, I'm so ready. I don't even care if things crumble. That's sometimes what happens to me. It's like, well, everything is going to fall apart, but I would rather my life be in shambles and release the old than continue. So our natural ways we tend to change. I think like you're like the polar opposite. When you talk about your transition from corporate to coaching, it was like constant, seamless, there's no gaps. I won't leave until I've matched my salary, so life stays completely like this. So we really couldn't be more different.
It's true.
In that way of like how the energy of how like a big, not just a little change, but like how a quantum leap occurs to us, which is kind of interesting. However, I'm also noticing the wisdom of the way you do things. I'm noticing the wisdom in really completing the process before abandoning the old. Yeah, and I'll share, I'll say more about that in a minute. But I also think, I'm hearing and seeing as I watch you, like I'm watching also you lean more into the, okay, maybe we can make a big change, right? It's like both of our energies are like leaning a little bit towards the middle of like, okay, this is what a quantum leap could be like here.
Totally. I need more of what you have to come into. I need more of what you have to make this leap feel fun and just less terrifying inside. I need more of what you have, and so your energy inspires that in me, and then perhaps my energy inspires something in you.
Totally. I always like, I'm trying to think if there's no one else popping into my head at this exact second, but I'm sure there are other people. But like people like you and you I've always been kind of like jealous and inspired by people who can like be consistent and follow things through. You know, like the way you do things, from the outside looking in, I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that. Like, I'm not good at that. Um, and I've always admired it, but it's always felt a little inaccessible to me, you know, almost like, oh, I know you're doing something really important there, and I should like do a little of that too. Not even from a place of like, oh, should, but from a place of I really sense there's something to that, but like I like don't even know how to access it. But for some reason, I don't know why this stuck with me. It could be just the moment, like you said, the book hit you in the right moment when you're actually ready to hear it. But when we were having our conversation with Angela, our podcast conversation, Angela McKay, she said something in that podcast conversation that really struck me in the moment and has stayed with me ever since. As soon as she said it, I was like, oh, I know this is important. And anyway, I've gone back to it over and over and over again and almost like begrudgingly let the wisdom of that soak in. And she said, so she was talking about her transition from corporate to entrepreneur, like launching her coaching business. And she had, what was it, like a 3-year runway from the time she knew I'm going to leave and I'm going to create this. It's like 3 years. But she didn't rush it. There was no urgency. And she said something along the lines of, it wanted to, I don't know if these were her exact words, I want to milk every last bit of experience and growth and whatever it was that I could get out of my old role before going out on my own. And it was this sense of, whether she said it or I could just understand it from what she was saying, there was the sense of, even though I know I'm leaving, there's also just this sense of, even though I know I'm leaving, this may have more to give me to continue to prepare me for what I need in, you know, my next quantum leap. And I'm noticing that as I consider that, when I think about all of the, you know, all of the things we want to do and the vision, the old part of me that, you know, maybe in an older version of me would have been like, okay, let's just drop everything now. Let's just take a risk. Who cares? Let's just abandon all of our other, you know, things and let's just do this. Instead of that, I still feel like a hint of that in certain moments, like a shade of that. But Angela's words keep coming into my mind and I contemplate it. And I notice as I stay in that energy, I notice that there is actually something a lot more special about this time than I ever would have given it credit for. It feels like as I'm in the last season of a certain, I don't know, a certain era.
Expression. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the things I'm doing that I think, oh, I might do less of this in this next version. I'm noticing there's like this extra quality of like ease to it or peace with it, almost like I appreciate it in this different way, you know, and it feels incredibly good and incredibly healthy not to feel a sense of urgency in releasing, you know, say there's certain like tasks or roles that I do less of. It feels really good to not feel a sense of urgency to release those things and to shift. Not that I'm not super excited about our quantum leap, but I'm really noticing how in the past, that sense of urgency to transition, and I'm feeling the contrast now. This feels so much more grounded. It actually feels more empowering. Before I would have thought, no, it feels empowering to like immediately honor my new desires. But it actually feels more empowering to allow this shift to happen without forcing it. You know, it's like, oh, I think it also creates more, I don't know, I understand why for you this is so intuitive, because it does create a bit more sense of like safety and trust in the future vision, and my nervous system is feeling really nice right now and is not in like terror that it's it is surprising to me that I'm finding a way to really enjoy where I am, even though I know there's a new place I want to be. And I don't know if I've ever quite done this before in this type of circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah, when Angela said that, I was like, Angela and I have very similar internal processes. I was like, yeah, like of course. Like yes, like that felt so true, rang so true to me. And I could recall my last experiences, last months leading up to my exit, well, even last year to leading up to my exit of my corporate job, and just having the exact same mindset of I don't want to come here and think, oh, I hate my job. Oh, I need to get out of here. Like I don't want to, that's not good energy to spring forward from. I just wanted to find every outlet I possibly could in this job with these beautiful humans around me, and just milk it for everything I did. And I remembered the same was true for my home when I was dreaming about this quantum leap into the next home. Even though we outgrew the home, the walls felt like they were caving in on us because it was so compact and small. I wanted to appreciate the home and like love the home and be so grateful for the home, and not feel like, oh, something, we need to get out of here. I didn't want to feel that energy. And so I think it's intuitive of me to do that because I just don't want to feel that. I just don't. And it's not productive.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think the most powerful way to get to that next leap is to be so grateful for where you are today, and not in a settling kind of way, in a, I know there's something coming, but I'm so grateful for what I have right here, right now. And I'm going to find every expression I can here. I'm going to milk it for all that I have right here, right now. That is potent, magnetic, powerful, universal energy that brings the leap to you quicker.
Yeah.
And easier.
Yeah. What's funny is right now I have access to more gratitude like than I have in a while. It's really easy for me to access it right now. As you say that, I like tap into like my heart and my life and think, and I'm just like, oh, I am so grateful. However, gratitude's really tricky for me. Like, I think for you and for many people, and maybe this is true for me too, I just have resistance to it, or I haven't tried hard enough, I don't know. But it seems like some people can be really intentional and say, I'm really going to cultivate some gratitude right now, and I'm going to do a gratitude practice. I know when you just choose to do a gratitude practice, all of a sudden, you send me messages being like, oh, you're just soaking in it. And it's like so quick. And because you decided to do it, you're just filled with gratitude and it's so powerful. And I'm listening like it doesn't work for me. I don't know. I'm like jealous because I know gratitude is so powerful. And maybe perhaps I just have some like mental blocks and I could like try harder. That's like very possible. Also for me, I feel like this gratitude seems to come almost like more naturally. It's like the gratitude coming is a sign I'm getting close. And I don't know how to, I'm not good at accessing it before I'm getting close. Like when I'm in the period of time where I'm like really struggling, like path and trials and failures, death and rebirth, especially like the painful beginning of the death, I find it really hard to access that gratitude. And I think I'm there's a lot of other emotions that are way more present than than the gratitude. But for me, when I feel the gratitude start to trickle in naturally without me trying to get it, that's really exciting to me, because I'm like, oh, I'm like I can sense like I'm settling into a powerful frequency because the gratitude's coming. And that almost makes me more great. It's like when natural gratitude starts to creep in, I know that is a good sign. We're getting close, things are happening. I don't have to start grasping because it's like, oh, things are happening. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I feel like some people are really good at harnessing that gratitude and making it come sooner. I don't know. For me, it's like I have to wait until I start.
Naturally feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You know, gratitude can be, I can feel that natural gratitude as well in certain, when I'm exactly the same, when I'm sensing it's close and I'm just, oh, it's coming, I can feel it. I totally agree. And gratitude in other times of my life where I'm really cultivating a gratitude practice because I need it, it's um it's just one of many mind resets that support me. And to your point, I don't know if that is going to work for everyone. And so for me, it might be gratitude. For you, it might be going to spend time with your chickens. You know, like the things that help to, especially when we're death and rebirth, especially when we're wrestling with something, like finding a mind reset practice that works for you might not look like what works for me. And what's important is that we're just somehow supporting ourselves through those times. Yeah. Okay. Any last thoughts, Michelle?
I don't know. No, but give me another second. Any last thoughts for you?
See, right now I can literally see you sifting through your internal process to see if there are any. I literally imagine, anytime I ask you that question, I literally imagine you checking in every last corner of your body to see if there's any other little anything else that wants to come out of you. I feel like I can literally see it.
It's true. That is what I'm doing. And I'm not finding anything.
There we go.
It's funny because this maybe often happens, but sometimes there's something else I want to share. I'm like, yes. And other times this happens on podcasts. It also happens on Voxers with you. I'm like, what else do I have to say? And I'm not finding anything, but I keep searching because I'm like, I'm enjoying this conversation. I don't want it to end. I want to find something else to say. But no, I have nothing else.
Yeah. I have nothing else either, other than this is, I guess maybe just where I want to keep leaning into is the contemplation around, we found the essence of these natural abilities. I want to like go out to the rest of the team and have these conversations and see what they define as their, you know, the essence of their natural abilities or these unique abilities. And then I want to keep asking the question, what does that look like in this 10x version? I just want to keep leaning there and keep contemplating that and continuing to see what unfolds from here.
Me too.
Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. If you are drawn to the MRA, it's more than likely that you are the go-to person for your people. You are here to deeply impact the lives of those you love and serve. And the MRA's mission is to support you in your life's work. To learn more about our suite of trainings, including our renowned flagship coach training, leadership trainings, and continuing coach education programs, please visit our website at www.themindrebel.com.